Many residents in and around Lethbridge were shocked by the disappearance and murder of Tia Blood. Unfortunately, Tia is one of many missing or murdered Indigenous women. To talk more about the effect this has on the Aboriginal families in our province, we wanted to connect with Pastor Deborah Minoose of Edmonton to talk about the struggles and solutions for those families whose loved ones have gone missing or have lost their lives. Deborah, thank you for joining us today to talk about this sensitive issue.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Likewise, Deborah, you are a Christian minister, so we want to start with your role in the community. When you are with a family in pain because they have lost a loved one, where do you even start?
Well, I begin by acknowledging that they are going through grief and that they are going through the pain of losing a loved one. And I ask them to look around who can support them, who it is that they can talk to if they're wanting to talk, because there are different ways that our people, especially the First Nations, like to express their ways of grief. And it isn't necessarily the same as other folks. Sometimes it is, where we get together as a group, we get together as families, we get together, individually as well with other people. So a lot of it is in getting together in the community sense where we're getting, we're doing maybe feeding, having a meal together where we're getting together and talking about it, not even talking about it sometimes at first until the person is ready to actually connect. And then also going on to connect with other resources in the community.
Now, we've all lost a loved one and it's unbearable. Other than your church, are there community resources available to families whose mothers or daughters have gone missing or have been murdered?
Yeah, well, I was just actually thinking about that. Like in our community here in Edmonton, and I know in Calgary as well, there are connection to the MMIWG, which is for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women organization, and they have a toll-free number that you can call if you want to have counseling. If you want, it's 24 hours. If you want to talk to somebody, which is very, very good, because sometimes it can be, very detrimental in that family. So there is that, and there is also other resources around that has. It's an amnesty program as well. There's another one that is for missing and murdered Indigenous women. That you can connect with, as well as Indigenous Women on the Front Lines, which is my organization, and Shepherd's House Ministries, which is a ministry here in Edmonton. But we also, communicate with people from across the country.
Now, you mentioned earlier that First Nations have different or unique ways of dealing with grief. Can you talk about the importance of the family in times of grief and great turmoil?
Oh yeah, it's very, very key. Um, a lot of times, the family members will come together. They won't always talk about what had happened, but they want to have, the fellowship, the closeness, the connection with other family members. It's very important, and having that support within the family is very, very key in the healing process in regards to the trauma, in regards to the grief, and also being able to talk to other people, elders maybe, as well as counselors.
Now, it's very easy to dwell on grief and pains from the past. I lost my dad in 2003. It was very easy to dwell on that. And then I lost my mom right at the start of the pandemic. Do you have advice on healing and moving forward to a place of peace in the heart and mind?
Well, that's a very good question. I had lost my son during the beginning of the pandemic, and then also my father just actually in August.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was really looking at ways of having support ways of being able to deal with it. And I found the most important thing is to acknowledge that I went through a loss, to acknowledge that I am going through grief, and that I need to look at the areas that had been very key in my life with this person, this individual, and it helped me to grieve. It helped me to accept it and to move forward because we do have to live our life as well, and we can't stay in that place because that is also very dangerous when we stay in the place of grieving in our entire life because it stunts our growth actually. So in the studies that I have done personally as a woman, going through, missing different family members and helping people grieving and my own grieving as well, it had taught me that. So I think that's a big indication is to actually accept it, to look at it, and also to talk about it, to share about it with other folks. And I was able to do that with family members as well as a counselor.
And you mentioned that you've lost a loved one like in August. So can you tell us about how prayer and Bible reading has helped you personally through these hard times?
Well, the times that I was going through the prayer, I really believe that God had showed me the areas where I was not accepting the the part of my relationship with that person, and the things where there was good memories as well. So all these good things began to happen in my life when I was accepting, these responsibilities in my life, and I began to accept the fact that there was nothing that I could do. It was his time. He was an elder. He had lived his life, a good life, and it was time to let go. So that was the biggest thing for me was to be able to let go, and that he was in a better place now, to accept that, to talk about it, to communicate with somebody that would listen, that was going through actually the same kind of thing as myself. It was my daughter. And I began to relate to her the different things that I went through with my father, and the things that I was missing, the things that I wanted to hang on to, things I wanted to let go of as well. So that was wonderful. And then also, of course, the Bible reading as well, that was helping me. I actually began during that time. Um, it was just a coincidence, in my mind, but I know it was God's will. And it was the daily Bible reading by the evangelist Billy Graham. And I began to go through all the daily Bible readings, and it was so neat how, each Bible reading, it would go in hand with what I was going through. So that was wonderful. And I still, go by that each day.
Pastor Minoose, do these issues of grief and loss go to a deeper level of the spiritual part of our lives? And if so, how is the battle between light and darkness overcome?
I actually was touching a little bit about it, how it does affect us in a very deep way. Like if we do not let go of the grieving process, and if we don't accept it, because I remember in my own personal life when I didn't accept it, when I had lost a family member a few years ago, and I began to actually get physically sick from not accepting it. It can actually affect us physically, and I didn't want to. And I knew at the time, that I was going through something, but I couldn't accept it. So when I did, like it was probably about 8 months later, then I began to realize, yeah, I need to grieve. I need to accept this. I need to cry a bit. I need to talk about it, go for counseling and for prayer. And when I began to do that, then I began to have a deeper sense of who I was at the time and what I was going through in my healing process. So it is very important that we do talk about it with somebody.
And yeah, we've talked about having a community around you to deal with grief and pain. And I guess looking at the circumstances of missing and murdered Indigenous women, that would be the same, like having a strong community around you. But Pastor Minoose, how do you feel the church and the message of the Christian religion can help with building a safe community?
Well, for myself and my family, we've had a very positive feedback with the church here in Edmonton. We have quite a few different churches where we have, connect because I'm a minister. I do connect with other ministers. So that was a wonderful resource for me and my family that has helped me. And, like I said, I'm involved with Regency's Shepherd's House and as well as Church in the Vine. So because of those ones, they have helped me quite a bit in my whole grieving aspect of the murdered and missing Indigenous women that were in my own personal life. I actually, in the first period when there was some murdered and missing women that were being talked about 20 years ago, was during the Picton murders. And one of my sister-in-laws was involved. So
Wow.
the church actually, yeah, really supported me during that time, was really there for me. And I went through a lot of counseling, a lot of prayer, and that really, really helped me.
And do you feel that you have seen what you consider the root causes of missing or murdered members of your community that are not being talked about?
Well, I would say that the root causes it varies because I had done this whole investigation under Indigenous women on the front lines, and what we had found, myself and my family, and the different people I was working with, was there was different situations because there was some girls, coming, they were just going on their way home. They got picked up by somebody, by a stranger. Pardon me. Other situations that had happened where there was, a girl, she's in college, she's in university, she got picked up by somebody she's never ever seen again. These kinds of situations. And one of the things that I had talked before was that it really troubled me was that the fact that a lot of times these circumstances with these young girls and these women, their cases were never discussed, they were never brought out publicly. But when there was another somebody else from another race, um, there would be an Amber Alert instantly. And I was like, what is going on here? This is not right. And of course, the time period for when somebody goes missing is very important for them to look into immediately. So that was something that I looked into. That was something that I was very troubled by. And also the fact that a lot of people were not aware of it until just recently. And one of the things that's very key is that we need to educate ourselves. We need to know more about it, what is really going on out there. Why is this happening to our women? Why is that happening? One of the biggest things is that there's a lot of ignorance. There, it's not spoken about enough. It is not looked at as an important factor in our society that are murdered and missing Indigenous women. This is happening to them.
Now, historically speaking, there has been a lot of tension between the church and the Indigenous community. What has made you want to become a Christian minister?
Well, for myself, I actually had, at a very young age, when I was 5 years old, there was a wonderful Christian woman. She was Danish. She came from Denmark, and she came to this country, and God told her that she was going to minister to our people. And it was because of her reaching out. Her name was Mrs. Rasmussen. Her reaching out to our people. She, her and her husband, they rented a apartment building in the same building that I was at. They rented apartments in there, and they would have weekly Sunday schools in there in our building. And they went from house to house, from apartment to apartment, asking the families. And my mom said, "Yes, yes, I would love for my kids to be in Sunday school and also Bible school." So we were in there all the time, my brothers and my sisters and I, at a very young age, and that had affected me in a tremendous way. And I had seen it at a young age. Like when I became older and I was a teenager, we seen revival break out in our community. So that had a great impact upon our lives. And it was, during that time that the church really, really helped us to grow as individuals. And it was the First Nations community, of course, that was there, and the pastors, and they were talking a lot about, how God is with us, that God is for us, that God can help us in every area of our life. And it was such a tremendous time. And it still affects me to this day.
Well, Deborah, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking me. God bless you.